Thanks for tuning in to another edition of Bible Bytes. Today's passage is found in James 4:13 through 17. Thanks for listening. Verse 13 says, "Now listen, you who say, today or tomorrow we will go to this or that city, spend a year there, carry on business, and make money." Well, that statement in and of itself might not sound like something that we would have a problem with. In fact, in today's world, long-term planning is encouraged and seen as wise. And if you're not thinking long-term, you're seen as perhaps not being careful, not being wise with your time or resources. Yet in the first century, long-term planning was much less prevalent. Only the wealthy could really afford to or have any kind of ability to predict what would happen a year out, or make these claims. And so we also know that whoever the group of traveling merchants that were making these claims were also doing it with arrogance. So first of all, I want to stress that long-term planning or planning is not bad, except when it's done with arrogance. And verse 14 says, "Why, you do not even know what will happen tomorrow. What is your life? You are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes." So not even tomorrow is anything that any of us can have any kind of control over. Our lives are compared to a mist that appears and then disappears. And so not even thinking about someone's business plans or someone's ministry plans or any kind of plans a year from now, even tomorrow is something that we should view as a precious gift from God that He's completely sovereign over. And verse 15 says, "Instead, you ought to say, if it is the Lord's will, we will live and do this or that." And here I think James is talking about more than just tacking "if it is the Lord's will" onto all of our plans and just kind of tacking that on there and thinking that, okay, we're good now. But I believe it's more of a deeply rooted acknowledgement of God's sovereignty in our lives. And that really brings with it a humility. But in verse 16 it says, "As it is, you boast in your arrogant schemes, and all such boasting is evil." The Greek kind of literally reads, "You boast in your arrogances," which I had to kind of mull that over a little bit, because not many people boast in their own arrogance or the fact that they are arrogant. But I think here in the context, we can take this to mean in your arrogant plans, you boast in your arrogant plans, and that boasting is evil. So again, it's not planning itself, it's not wanting to be wise with the future, but it's thinking that we have some semblance of control over that future, or we don't include God in those plans. And verse 17 says, "If anyone then knows the good they ought to do and doesn't do it, it is sin for them." And so now that we have this knowledge of the good that we ought to do, which is to make all plans subject to God's sovereignty, which is to acknowledge Him in even our very tomorrow, then we're accountable for that. And it's a sin if we fail to acknowledge Him in our plans, if we boast in our arrogant plans and schemes. So how might this relate to us today? Well, I think this whole illusion of self-sovereignty, especially as Americans, has come crashing down with COVID-19. We have, or at least had, the ability to go to this or that city, spend a year there, carry on business, and make money, perhaps more than any other time in our history, with the ease of international travel, with being able to put money in the stock market, with all these things that we can do to try and protect our future. Well, COVID-19 has reminded us of that truth, where we don't even know what's going to happen tomorrow. 2020 has certainly proven that. So I hope that this comes off as not a discouragement that we don't know what's going to happen, but an encouragement that God is in control of our future. that we can trust him with tomorrow. And perhaps that we don't need to feel pressure to make any kind of boastful plans for tomorrow when we can acknowledge him in all of our ways. So I hope this is an encouragement to you during this time, and thanks for tuning in.